Radio Raheem here with John David Jackson in your favorite environment, man. We're in the gym. You know, you're training Sergey Kovalev for a fight against Muhammadi. With the kind of caliber, let's say, of competition that you've had in the past two recent fights, Pascal, Hopkins, do you feel like Muhammadi is a fall off from that level of fighter?
I wouldn't say a fall off, but he's definitely not in the caliber of opponent that he's faced in the recent fights. He's earned his position against whomever he's had to face to get number one. So he's earned it and he deserves it, so he's here.
When you're dealing with a fighter that's a champion like Kovalev is, and like you say, we won't call it a fall off, but he's not in the same bracket as those fighters, do you have to deal mentally with making him prepare as avidly for this fight as he did for the, fighters may feel like, well, maybe this is a cruise, this is a little bit of a break from the tough stuff?
Well, I think for him, this fight's actually he's more focused for this fight than it was for the Pascal fight. He's training harder. He's giving me 110%. Pascal and even Hopkins, he had distractions with the baby. But for this fight here, he's definitely focused. The thing with Sergey is he wants to remain champion. That was his dream, and he's lived that. But now it's time to keep it and make the money. So for him, and he wants that green belt also. So for him, the motivation is definitely there to remain champion.
He's talked about that Bernard Hopkins fight being a challenge mentally, not just because of what Bernard is able to do in the ring, but like you said, what was happening in his life outside the ring. How difficult was that for you? You guys kept that pretty much under wraps, but he's able to talk about it now. How difficult was that for you to navigate, and were you worried going into that fight that it may take a toll on his performance?
Well, I wasn't really concerned with it because he kept it under wraps enough where it didn't bother us. Whatever he was going through, he kept it to himself. And I commend him for that because it allowed us to stay focused and stay with the task on hand, which was getting ready for Bernard. And he listened and he learned and he fought the fight that he was supposed to fight. I thought Bernard would win about 3 rounds. I know he shut him out. I gave Bernard a chance to win 3 rounds, but the fact that he listened to what I told him to do and the game plan was followed very well, he shut Bernard out. So he showed me the fact that he has adversities mentally that he can deal with outside the ring and doesn't let it affect his performance inside the ring. Showed me that he's very, he's grown as a fighter. He's definitely grown as a fighter, and he's mentally strong.
He says that growing as a fighter is very important to him, and we see him doing Pilates before the Hopkins fight. Now we see him in there wrestling like Greco-Roman. These aren't conventional methods of boxing. I know you're kind of old school. When he introduces this kind of stuff into training, how do you incorporate it into the boxing mentality, and do you feel like it helps, or is it just something for physical conditioning?
For me, I just listen. Whatever makes him happy, I'll let him do. I don't see where it helps him boxing-wise, but he's strong, and I guess he uses it for maybe when guys are grabbing him during a fight. He's been wrestling. He's definitely a very good fighter. So it's the things that he does that he brought to him from Russia. Let him do it. Listen. If it makes you happy, makes you comfortable, do what makes you feel good. I have no problem with that. I just watch and say, okay, if that works for him, no problem.
You say that he uses it for grappling, and I asked him this as well. Are you thinking that maybe Muhammadi's an outside fighter? He's going to try to outbox Kovalev and not mix it up too much. So grabbing may be part of the arsenal. Is that in the thinking or the game plan at all?
Well, Muhammadi being the smaller fighter, his arms are short. He better try to work his way inside, because if you stand on the outside like that, you're going to get picked apart. First of all, you can't grab from the outside. And you watch the kid, he likes to leap a lot, Muhammadi. That might be to his undoing. I just think that for him to not defeat Sergey, but just to be in the fight, he has to get on the inside. But you got to pay a price to get inside fighting Sergey. So, there's not much he's going to be able to do. I mean, listen, he might surprise me. He might surprise everybody. But I haven't seen it in any one fight that he's had. I haven't seen it in his preparation for the fight. So, whatever he brings to the table, we'll all be surprised. I'm not. I guess I am selling him short because he listen, but I'm not selling him short as far as our training goes. We're going to be 110% and ready to go 12 hard rounds if it has to go that long.
Are you saying that you haven't watched any tape on him, haven't watched any of his fights, or you just haven't seen that when watching?
I've watched a couple, and I'm still getting a couple more, but it's painful, man, to watch these fights. Listen, he it is what it is. He does what he does best. His style's so unconventional, kind of herky-jerky, what he does. And he hasn't fought, like you say, the caliber of opponents that Sergey's fought. Sergey's a proven fighter, a proven champion. And Najib's not. He's beaten a couple guys to get where he's at, but he's also been stopped. Can he really pull this off? We'll see. can Abel draw up a game plan to help him beat Sergey? I doubt it. You know, Sergey, for this fight, his motivation is to knock this kid out in front of and Sanchez. So there's a lot of things that are going on with this fight, you know, and I think Sergey will not want to lose this fight by any means necessary. So he's definitely got himself motivated to win this fight. Possibly a knockout, maybe by decision, but knockout definitely.
You mentioned that Sergey wants to knock this guy out in front of Sanchez. There does seem to be a little tension there as Kovalev was in the gym for a minute. Talk to me about that rivalry. Do you feel any of it on your side? Is there something like trainer versus trainer? You want to best him as well?
Not for me. Listen, I'm not the one. You know, listen. When the bell rings, I'm going down those steps. You know, whatever differences he and Abel have, that's between them. You know, the thing Abel has to realize, Abel can walk down those steps. Now, G's going to catch all the hell that he's talking. You know, all the hell, he's going to catch that. So, you know, whatever their differences are, that's between them. I don't get involved in that. I just train the kid and say, listen, let's go take care of this kid. Don't worry about Abel. Abel's going to be going down the steps when the bell rings. Do what you got to do with this kid. Let's get him out of here. If it goes 1, great. If it goes 12, okay, that's good too. As long as you get the W and you look decent and winning, it doesn't diminish your next fight or your, whatever you're going to ask for. You know, it doesn't diminish your payday. So, you know, whatever problem they have, that's on them. Like I said, the kid has to be the one who has to take the punishment for whatever the trainer says, and that's a bad feeling, brother. That's a bad feeling in the ring.
You know, fighters aren't supposed to look beyond their opponent. Yeah. They're not looking down the line, but promoters, trainers, they kind of have to. You got to see where your fighter is and what should be next for him when those discussions come up. So obviously, Andre Ward is in the discussion, maybe even more so than Adonis Stevenson, since that fight seems so difficult to make. Did you watch the Andre Ward fight?
Actually, I happened to be there. I had a kid fighting on that card, but I didn't watch it. Listen, Andre is good at 68, and he cleaned the division out. He did what he was supposed to do, and, you know, he gets kudos for that. I take my hat off to him. Now you want to talk about coming to 175. Come on, listen. If Boone could hurt you at 68 and drop you, at 68, what do you think will happen when this kid hits him on the button? You know, if Andre is good at what he does, but he has the arsenal to keep Sergey off of him. You can't keep Sergey off of you. How are you going to survive 12 rounds? Now, Sergey already proved he can box, so it's not like he can't dissect you. Now, what are you going to do to keep this man off of you? You're going to hold him for 12 rounds? You can't do that for 12 rounds. You can't maul him. You got to fight him. Is your chin going to hold up, and do you have the punch power to keep him off him? Those two things are going to be the biggest question you have to answer. Boxing skill, you have that. But this kid has boxing skill, and he can dissect you, and he's proven that. So you haven't shown certain things that you need to show. You know, the chin's kind of suspect. He's taking some shots, but he's been dropped also, and he's been hurt. And if a kid that can punch like Sergey can catch you with a flush good shot, what are going to happen then? What happens then? He's not going to listen. One thing about when he smells the blood, you're in trouble. So it's an intriguing fight, and I don't knock Andre. He was good at 68. He cleaned the division out. If he wants to come to 75, it's welcomed. Hey, I think he might stay at 68 though, because there's 2 more fights that he can fight at that weight, and that's cool. Listen, make your money. I can't knock him for that.
As a trainer, with the unification bout aside, the belt thing aside, just as a trainer looking at your fighter and possibilities, if you had Andre Ward and Adonis Stevenson in front of you, who would you send your fighter in there after first? Who do you think is the best opponent for him to have success against?
At this stage of their careers and his career, whichever one he can get first. You know, they both have good names. You know, they're both kind of lukewarm right now because, you know, Andre's coming off the problem he had with Goosens, and then I guess he had a little injury. I'm not sure. Stevenson's just being smart. He's fighting guys and making as much money as he can and minimizing his danger. So whomever he can get is great for Sergey. I have no preference. They're both good fighters. They both still have marquee value, so it would be a very interesting fight for Sergey. And, you know, I think the fans deserve those kind of fights. So whomever he can get first, I'd welcome it. Neither one's more dangerous than the other, except for the fact that if Stevenson hits you with that left hand, he can just lights out because he has the power. Not both hands, but the one hand to really neutralize a fight. So let's say to answer your question, he might be a little more dangerous, but whichever one we can get first is who we take.
And lastly, John, Andre Ward is considered number 2 on most people's pound for pound. Obviously, Floyd number 1. Where do you put Sergey in that pound for pound list? Where would you put him at?
I would just put him in the top 10 because, you know, you can argue for one or the other, maybe a certain slot, and maybe this guy doesn't belong here, maybe deserves one down. I would just say, you know, just to have him in the top 10 for now is good. It's kind of mythical. You can't really see who's the best, but right now Floyd has been there for the longest. Ward number 2, he should drop because he's been inactive. But listen, I mean, if you're in the top 10, it's an honor. So all the guys that make it, hey, they should be happy to be there. So I couldn't say where he should be, just be in the top 10.
Radio Raheem, getting the truth from John David Jackson. As always, man, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for the wisdom. Radio Raheem, John David Jackson.